Hi, this is Keith with Alien Drones. Thanks for stopping by the channel. Today I'm going to go through something that I've been putting off for a while, and that is the actual gains, the EXP, and the gimbal settings to get some good footage. And I've been fiddling with these to make sure that I get some decent footage, and I've had some failed attempts as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put out there today what settings I found and kind of why, and I'll walk through some of them. And I'm not going to go through the camera settings per se. I've already kind of done that with neutral density filter. You'll find that up here. So go ahead and take a look at that video to find out how I set the camera settings to get that good cinematic look. But for now, I'm going to go through these, show you what I found. So here we go. All right, so first you might say, well, why are you going through these settings now? There's a lot of people that have the settings out there. And yes, you're right. I've searched YouTube as well and found a lot of people that are posting settings. And you know, I'm happy if those settings work for them. But I'll be honest, they did not work for me. What I'll do is I'll put a quick video on there of some of the orbits I was trying to do around some guys in a boat. And I was struggling terribly. So for me, the settings that I found around the internet sucked. Now, I'm sure people put a lot of time into them and it works great for them. So here you'll be able to see the orbit, and I struggled with that a little bit. And then I'll put the orbit on here so you can see it of when I actually had my settings dialed in the way that I like them for the zoom and such. So when I mean that the settings suck, don't take offense. It's only mean that they sucked for me. And if they don't work for you, just like these settings I'm going to show you, if they don't work for you, then they don't work for you. And you know, start somewhere and then actually see what works for you and adjust them as you need, because everybody has their own style. Everybody has their own fingers. You're pushing on the remote here in a certain way. So, you know, what works for you, but I'm going to let you know what I use and why, and then hopefully it's useful to you. So here we go. We're going to start first with going to the EXP settings. So how I'm going to do that is actually pressing on this little drones symbol up there, and we're going to hit the EXP. And you'll notice that I have them set to 0.25, 0.15, and 0.25. Now, the normal settings are not like that. But the reason I chose these settings is because everything that I did is based on trying to do a decent orbit. I know that sounds weird, but if you can master an orbit and have really good control of centering that image at a good speed, and then actually moving your gimbal as you're going around the orbit and actually make it look cinematic, most of the other footage will fall into place, because you'll be able to get your speed the way you want it. You'll be able to get your moves the way you want it. Your left and right will be the way you want it. So that's kind of what I based it on. If I could get that to be nice and stable, that was a criteria for me. So what I found is that the rotate right-left was really important to kind of calm that down just a little bit from the typical. So I went down to 0.15. And the forward and the right I left up at the 0.25. The throttle up and down didn't really matter that much. So I left that up at the 0.25. But I took care of the forward and the right, the backward and the left, which is this sideways action, a little bit later, and I'll explain that when I get to it. But for now, I'm just going to show you what this looks like.
Take off. The home point has been updated. Please check it on the map.
So this is the left and right. And I'll show you some of that footage here. But I've got this throttle, I mean, I've got it probably 3/4 of the way, and you can see how kind of slow it is. And that's what you need to be able to do a decent orbit, is have nice control of it while you're actually pushing about 3/4 of the way. Let me get that on here. So about 3/4 of the way on that throttle is what's giving me this movement. Now if I really want to move, I will go all the way over. Then it will spin, of course, quite a bit more. But most of that movement is, this 3/4 of a movement here is not very fast. It's actually quite good. Also, this forward right and back left, and I'll show that here. So the next place I'm going to take you is to the sensitivity itself. This is where I mentioned that I actually kind of took care of my right-left action a little bit. So this is actually where I did that. And that's all the way down here to the bottom of this yaw. You'll notice that that was typically at 100. So the yaw endpoint is basically showing us how far we're going to move this handle before is maximum. And what that means is if I go all the way to the right, that's 80% of the total. So if I put that to 50%, and I would push it all the way over, maximum handle excursion here would only give us 50% of the move. So that's what that yaw endpoint actually does. Now that's an awesome setting. So what I did is set that up to 80%, and that allows me to move quite a ways before I even get to 30 or 40 or 50%, because maximum is 80. So that's where I actually took care of the side-to-side movement, the yaw in this case, is by using the endpoint instead of using the gains in here, okay? All right, now the attitude I left at the default, and the brake I left relatively high. And the reason I left that brake relatively high is because the brake, if you move that way down, yes, it gets smoother if you're going up to something and slowing down. It will slow down very slow. It'll take a little time here to kind of slow back and forth, but it coasts. And if you're coming up to something and you let off and it coasts, you can run into things a lot easier. So I'm going to leave the brake so it doesn't coast beyond where I want it to go and actually take the chance on running into something. Now the next numbers, and that is the gains. Well, I left the gains relatively high because it really, what this does is the gain is the actual response of your aircraft to an upset of what it's doing. So for instance, if you have a gain and the aircraft is pushing on it, so from the side here, the wind comes and you're floating along here and there's an upset where it pushes on it. The gain is how fast it pushes back to keep you in position. Now, I have found that the actual stability of the Mavic itself is awesome. It's very good. I haven't had any problem where it's staying in position. I've had a lot of comments where onlookers have said they can't believe how stable it is. So I don't want to fool with the gains. It's doing a good job by itself at these 100 gains to stay in position. So I left those right alone, and I'll take care of the movements and the other options. So I leave those right at the default. The last one that I'm going to show you is the actual camera itself. And what we're going to do there is actually go to the camera gimbal. All right. And the camera gimbal is going to be probably a lot different than you've seen anybody else use. And again, this is from trial and error and the way I like it, but I'll show you what that looks like here.
Take off. The home point has been updated.
So this right here is full gimbal, full movement for me. There's full all the way down. I'm holding the wheel all the way. See here, I'm holding the wheel all the way. And the reason I do that is because I found during those cinematic shots, I actually want the movement of the pan going down to be very nice and smooth. Now, there's two settings on here. So here's the one you can see it actually going out. There we go. And you can see if you were to pan with this and you were actually going to pan down, you can see that this would be a nice cinematic, and it's a very smooth, I'm pushing it all the way. So this movement, pushing this wheel all the way one way, gives me a nice pan. And usually I won't need to go any more than that. So if I really need to move fast, and here's about half, and you can see here's a nice movement, that's about half of the wheel. You see it's a nice slow movement where I can really pan into something. So here's full again. Now this for me is a nice motion. Now I would think some people might want to go a little bit more with that, a little bit higher so you can have more control of it. I find I don't really need it for anything. If I want to go faster, that's when I use the button on the bottom here. So this button on the bottom, let's see if I can get this zoomed in here. And I'll show you what that does here. I'll show you what that does. So if I push that button on the bottom, here's what happens to the video. You can see That's very, very fast. Now that very fast motion, if I needed to go down because I was searching for what have you, because I was searching for a particular image, or I wanted to just do a down shot to find out where I am, pushing that button down here is going to do that for me. I don't need to sit here and pan really slow to get down there and kind of waste my time. So I'm going to use that button if I need to pan quick, but then I can actually use the wheel if I want to pan very slow and get this nice cinematic movement. So this gives me a nice way, about half, I can kind of creep up on it. Now the smoothness, and I'll go to that again. The gimbal pitch smoothness here, you can see this one here that I have set to 20. That is how it kind of stops. That's the smoothness, as when you let go, it kind of coasts to a stop. That's what the smoothness does for me. And the pitch is actually when it's moving, the pitch speed is actually when it's moving, how fast it's actually moving. So the gimbal pitch limit allows us to just go above the horizon. So if I turn that on, it would actually go up. I have no reason to go straight above the horizon. I actually used that a couple of times and lost track of where I was. It was really kind of odd to have the thing pointing up into the sky above, and usually what you end up with is just a picture, a lot of video of your propellers in the shot. So I couldn't find any reason to leave that turned on. And the synchronous follow was the same thing. As it's actually moving, the gimbal actually kind of moves back and forth, left to right just a little bit as you're moving the shot. So I leave that turned on as well. I think that does a great job. So all that being said, if I had to adjust anything, I might take my speed and maybe run it up to 8 or so, but that would be about it. I've tried other settings, and you know, I'm not that quick with my fingers, especially when you're using, you're using this method, and you're actually doing that wheel with this index finger here. I like having it kind of slow so I don't have to be super precise, because I want the precision in my handles here and my sticks so I can really position things, and that actual pan up and down should be a little bit slower. So anyway, that's all I have for you today. I hope it was useful to you, and please, as I mentioned, please subscribe, hit the like. It's free, I promise. I won't charge you anything if you hit the like. I really do appreciate it. It lets me know that I've put something out here that is of value to you. And again, if you have any questions about settings or anything else to do with the Mavic, shoot me a comment. I'd be happy to answer it. I always like suggestions for new videos. And let me know in the comments what you think as far as settings, what you've found. If you go up or down a little more, if you have other settings that you've played with, things that I didn't mention in here. And again, remember, look at that video that was up here with regard to the actual camera settings using neutral density filters. That'll be crucial as well to get some good footage. So again, appreciate you stopping by, and good flying. In case any of you are wondering, of course, these are awesome shoes. Yes, and if you send me a note, I will let you know where I purchased them in case you want some just like it.